We love you, we honor you, and we thank you.
President Trump signs the hard-fought 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund that will guarantee benefits to first responders for the next 70 years. We'll talk to the co-sponsor of the landmark bill.
You need to be able to answer the tough questions.
Plus, the battle between the moderate Democrats as they duke it out in their second debate. The winners, the losers. We'll hear from our panel of analysts.
Now, from 42nd and 2nd, this is Pix 11 News Close-Up with Marvin Scott.
Good morning. This past week, President Trump signed the extension to the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund that will provide a lifetime of assistance to first responders and others who developed cancers and other illnesses related to the 9/11 attacks. Now, it's been renamed the Never Forget the Heroes Act in the names of James Zadroga, Ray Pfeiffer, and Luis Alvarez, first responders who have died. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney was the lead sponsor of the bill, which she fought tirelessly to get approved by both houses of Congress. And joining her is Rob Serra, a firefighter whose first day on the job was September 11th, 2001, and he is one of the beneficiaries of this fund. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations. I know how hard you worked. Nice to see you without your bunker jacket.
Thank
last
you,
time
Marvin,
you were here.
for covering the story from day one on 9/11. You've covered the story up to this completion where it's finally signed into law, and the responders and heroes and survivors get the health care they so justly deserve and the peace of mind knowing that their families will have compensation and they'll be compensated when they can't work because of their illnesses.
Now, I understand your office said that you were not invited to the signing by the president. Why not?
I have no idea, but I'm thrilled that he signed it. And I am thrilled that he invited Rob and many other responders and the people that were part of the effort to make it happen. Every bill is very special. I have a great respect for anything that can get that flower of consensus and pass the United States Congress. But this was a particularly hard fought, and many people dedicated their lives as Rob did. He was involved in coming to Congress many times, and I'm grateful he'll never have to come again because we passed it. The main point is it's a win for America. It's not a Democratic issue or a Republican. It's the right thing to do, and we finally turned our pledge of never forget into the reality in people's lives, the reality of a law that is there to help them.
Now, Rob, you were in the Oval Office when the president signed that bill.
The Rose Garden.
Rose Garden.
Yes. Like the Congresswoman said, I was just happy he signed it. I wish you were there. But,
Thank you.
But be happy to know that you were there with us because we know all the work you did.
Thank you.
And we appreciate it. But yeah, it was a great day just to finally have some closure on 18 years of fighting with Congress. You know, like the Congresswoman said, it just brought us a little bit of peace. I can't say we're celebrating, but at least we have peace of mind knowing that our families are going to be taken care of.
How were you impacted by the toxic air after the attack?
I have a slew of issues. I'm fortunate that I haven't been diagnosed with cancer yet, but I've had sinus polyps, I've had surgery for that, GERD, sleep apnea, thyroid nodules, and I have a slew of neurological problems, which causes neuropathy and some shaking, which is pretty common now. So.
Now, it's been estimated that 410,000 people have been exposed to asbestos and other hazardous debris in the aftermath of the collapse of those towers. These people now, how do they go about accessing the compensation provided for in this fund?
You go to the internet and you go to vcf.gov. Why don't you go through the process?
Yeah, you go to vcf.gov and it walks you through the steps. And if you're not enrolled in the 9/11 health program, that's your first step. So you go to cdc.gov and find the 9/11 health program in that site, and that'll walk you through the steps of signing up for the program, and then you can apply for the VCF.
Now, when you were out there working on the piles, you had an omen at that time. You had a fear, and you were quoted as saying, "This is going to kill me."
Sure. I mean, common sense would tell you if you can grab the air, it's probably not good. And I had just gotten out of the academy, and they teach you about the harms of breathing in concrete dust, glass particles, asbestos, which we now know there were 400 tons of asbestos in the air. And I had a bloody nose that day for about 5 hours, and I passed out at ground zero. So I knew that right on that something was bad.
Now, there is a health program in effect at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. I think it has like 72,000 people have enrolled, and 8,000 already have cancer. So Mount Sinai is monitoring people like you. And
that's just the Mount Sinai program. The fire department has their own, and we have over 2,000 with cancer in our program. So there's over 10,000 people right now with 9/11 related cancer.
Now, why is there such a spike in cancers now, 18 years later?
Because it takes a while for it to happen. When we started on this 18 years ago, we first passed a monitoring program, then we funded health programs, then we passed these bills. And people wanted to say that it covers cancer, but we had to prove the science. At the time, the science didn't prove that cancers were related to it. So we had to set up a monitoring system within the health department that would look at new illnesses that emerged. Now, Dr. Moline has said, who is running the program at Mount Sinai now, that the spike in cancers is why we were running out of money. In February, the special master said that the Victims' Compensation Fund had to be cut by 40 to 70%, depending when people came into it, because it was running out of money and would expire in 2020. So we introduced a bill to make it permanent so that the heroes and heroines would not have to continue to come back and beg Congress to give them the support they so desperately needed.
Now, this fund will be in effect till 2092. It's called an entitlement, and from what I read, that's a very rare thing in Congress, entitlement. What does that mean, entitlement?
That it's there for the life of the people affected. It's there. It doesn't have to be reauthorized or refunded. And if you look at the entitlement programs, they're incredibly important. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Zadroga Health Program, the Affordable Care Act, Victim Compensation Fund.
Now, Rob, you were part of the whole lobbying effort, you, John Field of the Feel Good Foundation. The frustration that you had to experience in going through this process and dealing with members of Congress.
Yeah, I would just try to remain calm, and I remember the words that Ray Pfeiffer said to me. It's that we're right and they know it, so they're the ones who should be nervous. And that's what I kept in my mind, and I stayed calm, and it was hard because I wanted to go down there kicking and screaming and yelling, but as you know, that's not what was going to get the bill passed. So we just worked diligently. We had over 300 meetings. We told the truth, pled our case, and ultimately, we won.
What was the most difficult part of it?
For me, it was physically sitting in a car, driving to Washington, having to tell my 9/11 story 15 times in a day. It's hard, for people suffering from PTSD like I do. It's hard to rehash that over and over again, and I had to do it over 300 times, which I believe is a wrong that was done to me and the rest of our team. We shouldn't have had to do that. We shouldn't have had to relive that day. We did enough, I believe. But we don't give up, and we don't stop, and we didn't stop on 9/11. We didn't stop with the recovery effort, and we certainly weren't going to stop with this effort because that's just not how we're made. So yeah, I was a little disheartened by some members of Congress, but fortunately we had members like Congresswoman Maloney, whose office was always a place of respite for us. It was a safe place, if you will, for us to go and hang our hat. So for as many bad experiences that I had down there, I'm choosing to remember the good ones.
Let me ask the Congresswoman this. How did you deal with those colleagues of yours who claimed this was a New York issue?
Well, that was one of the biggest challenges. People would try to frame it like it was a New York issue, but New York was attacked as a symbol of our country. They attacked our Pentagon, our financial center, and they were going to the Capitol when they were brought down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So this was a national attack on our country. It was the first major terrorist attack, and or one of the most largest, certainly. We'd had other smaller ones, and other people have tried to attack us since. But it was a national response. We documented that out of 435 congressional districts, 433 congressional districts have people in the program. 50 states have people in the program. It was a national responsibility, and God forbid that we are attacked again. We need to show our responders, our country, that we are there for the people that are there for us, that we are there with their health care the support for their families.
Why did it take so long to finally get this approved?
It's not easy to pass a bill of this magnitude in Congress, and we were working towards this goal the whole time. Right after we started funding programs at Mount Sinai that had a history of working in environmental health care, which is what this was, an environmental health problem, and it was funded by the private sector. And the first bill was a monitoring bill, then the second was trying to just get health care funding out to certain sites around the city to take care of people. And then finally in 2010 we passed the James Zadroga Health and Compensation Bill, only for 5 years. In 2015 we passed the bill that made health care permanent, but the Victims' Compensation Fund was only 5 years to 2020. And then we saw the horror of it running out of money and the cancers emerging. I think that Robert's efforts and the efforts of putting a human face on it, and they did a lot of research. They would go into members' offices and have what they said about 9/11 that they'd never forget and say, you have an opportunity to be on this bill now. And it worked. We had over 330 co-sponsors of my bill, which is one of the highest I've ever seen in Congress, and over 402 members voted for it, which is unbelievable in this Congress.
Well, all a remarkable effort on your part. Now, you're calling on Mayor de Blasio to have a ticker tape parade. You want these first responders and victims to come up the Canyon of Heroes. How's he responded?
I think that they are an all-star. We're usually having teams for the soccer team recently, but the greatest all-star team of all times is a team that worked on 9/11. I think they deserve it. The mayor's been busy. We'll see what happens.
Busy. Has he responded to your request?
I haven't talked to him directly.
He's running for president.
I know he's in the debate. He's not. Well, anyway, his office was very supportive.
But you haven't heard from him directly?
I have not heard from him directly.
That's not. Okay. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, again, congratulations for your effort for the Victim Compensation Fund. And Rob, Sarah, and all the best of luck and good health for you. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for telling the story from day one.
We'll have you back here again soon.
You were down at 9/11 on day one, covering the story.
A lot of other issues we have to talk about, so we'll have you back in a couple of weeks.
And by the way, you should get into the fund. Every member of the press, everyone who worked there, who volunteered there, who lived there, they should get into the fund because you don't know if cancers can emerge.
If in doubt, check it out. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to take a break and come back. We'll get some analysis of this week's Democratic debate. We'll be right back.
You were down there on 9/11.
It was a battle between the centrists, the moderates, and those on the far left. The Democrats in debate again, all 20 presidential wannabes gathering in Detroit for their second of 3 debates. The second night pitted 3 candidates from our area against the rest of the pack. And as Henry Rossoff tells us, that debate opened with a protest directed at Mayor de Blasio.
On night 2, protesters began the evening by bringing the death of Eric Gardner and Mayor de Blasio's New York City record front and center during opening statements. Vice President Joe Biden seemed more prepared than he was in Miami and ready for a fight, challenging the other candidates about how they'd pay for their health care plans.
And I don't know what math you do in New York. I don't know what math you do in California, but I tell you, that's a lot of money.
Biden took fire from all sides all night, including from Mayor de Blasio and New Jersey Senator Cory Booker during a section on immigration.
You can't have it both ways. You invoke President Obama more than anybody in this campaign. You can't do it when it's convenient and then dodge it when it's not.
When I was asking the vice president a bunch of tough questions, I didn't know what the heck he was saying. I didn't get answers.
And then again on the topic of criminal justice, Biden and Booker got into it. Booker attacking Biden's record of supporting crime legislation, and Biden responding by attacking Booker's time as mayor of Newark, leading to this exchange.
Mr. Vice President, there's a saying in my community, you're dipping into the Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor. You need to come to the city of Newark.
Meanwhile, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand struggled to gain traction at times, but did have a couple of moments that were well received by the audience of 3,500.
As a white woman of privilege who is a U.S. Senator running for President of the United States, it is also my responsibility to lift up those voices that aren't being listened to.
And our thanks to Henry Rossoff for that report. And so who were the winners and who were the losers? And here to dissect the debate, Pix 11 political analyst Morgan Pehme, Chapin Fay, Republican strategist with the Mercury Group, and Democratic strategist Hank Sheinkopf. Everyone seemed to be ganging up on the vice president. So how do you dissect this?
Well,
Hank?
Well, look, Biden won because he survived, and nobody really laid a glove on him. Cory Booker came out of this looking a little bit more aggressive, but this is generally a gaggle of incomprehensible geniuses that no one really cares much about.
Yeah, the winner of the debate was Donald Trump. I mean, by landslide, I think. I think what we're seeing is it's clear that the Democratic Party and the left have not recovered from Donald Trump's victory in 2016, and they don't know what to do with themselves. I mean, they spent the entire time attacking President Obama, who's a very popular former president. This is a race to the left, and I think that they're embarrassing themselves on the way there.
I'm actually going to depart from my esteemed colleagues here and think that, I thought these were very helpful debates. I think a lot of Democrats have not made up their mind. I do think that there are a lot of interesting candidates over the 2 nights of debates, and that, this is a race that anybody can take.
Well, the debate was kind of restrictive in the format. Didn't you feel they had 1 minute to respond and they had a lightning round, and you really didn't get to hear them? They seemed to be attacking one another.
Well, I think that was by design from CNN. I thought actually CNN did a terrible job by asking every single question deliberately to pit candidates against each other. They were looking for sound bites that could go viral, and they weren't really trying to facilitate a strong debate.
Well, that's what they always do. I mean, those were the rules. If you recall, in 2016, it was the same thing. The debates were set up so that Donald Trump and everyone on the stage could attack each other. The debates did wind up helping make him stand out. So I do think I agree with Morgan that it's anyone's ballgame, and these debates are helpful for the people who can't get any traction, like Mayor De Blasio.
Some might say that this is anybody's to win. I don't think so. I think there's 2 distinct blocks here. There's those who want the black vote and those who are the progressives. And this is broken down that way. You have Warren and Bernie Sanders on one side, Booker, Harris, and Biden, frankly, on the other side, vying to be the African-American candidate, because it is New Hampshire and South Carolina that will probably decide this outcome, and you can see this playing out.
Well, Buttigieg said at one point, he said, if we embrace a conservative agenda, they're going to say we're a bunch of crazy socialists. Isn't that true?
I don't think anyone can accuse anyone on that stage of embracing anything close to a conservative agenda. I mean, that's a weird thing to say.
Of course, this is what Donald Trump has sown the seeds for, to denounce whoever's the Democratic candidate as a socialist, as a person who is an extremist on the left, and that will be the criticism levied against any candidate.
Yeah, but for good reason. I mean, the standard bearers in the Democratic Party, like AOC, are avowed socialists. I mean, you can't say that there aren't leaders who, if we're going to get blamed for every minor thing that Donald Trump does wrong on the Republican side, then how can you distance yourself from the leaders of your own party who are calling themselves socialists?
I think you have to think about this from a campaign perspective, which is what I know well. Donald Trump is not running against the nominee of the Democratic Party. He's running against Ilhan Omar more than any of the others, because her comments about 9/11 will be on that screen in an ad that will have a lot of firepower behind it, in an independent expenditure. You can guarantee that now. In places where those Republican leaners or Reagan Democrats live, and those are the people that are going to decide the outcome.
Now, Medicare for all seemed to be an overriding issue, particularly coming from Bernie Sanders and talking about free tuition. That seemed to be resonating, wasn't it?
I mean, it always resonates at campaigns when you promise to give away free things. I mean, I didn't hear any responsible ways. I mean, these are fine ideas to debate, and they should be absolutely debated. I'm not someone who doesn't think that these ideas shouldn't be aired, but I didn't hear one responsible plan to pay for it other than I'm going to tax the hell out of rich people, which is a direct quote. I mean, that is not a responsible way to govern, and I don't think we have yet seen the responsible way to govern from what we've seen in the debates just yet.
We're making a big mistake here, thinking that somehow Democrats want somebody who's in the center, and the media keeps talking about the center. There is no center. There is a right wing in this country. There is a left wing. The entire system is polarized. That being said, by the way, you say Medicare for all, you probably get votes. You don't lose votes on that issue.
On that note, let's take a break. I want to come back. I want to talk about, how did Mayor de Blasio do? Is he finished, or does he go on to the next debate? We'll be right back. Back now with Morgan Pehme, Chapin Fay, and Hank Sheinkopf talking about this week's Democratic debate. How did Mayor de Blasio do? Don't all answer at
He
once.
was in the debate? He's running for president?
That was a desperate Hail Mary that he had by trying to say that he wanted to tax the hell out of the rich. He has been a non-factor in this race. It's ridiculous that he was running from the beginning, and he will soon be out of the running.
Well, as long as there are cities seeking to do business, as long as there are companies seeking to do business with the city, he'll have a contribution base, so he'll be able to struggle along for a little while longer.
He seemed to be faltering, particularly when he was placing the blame on the federal government for the problems with NYCHA, when people appointed him for the problem.
Definitely NYCHA with the Garner case. I mean, there were just so many vulnerabilities that the mayor has, and he really wants to point the discussion in any direction other than his own failings as a mayor. And he just really doesn't have a legitimate reason to be running for president.
Okay, so we got 20 wannabes there. Next debate coming up September 12th in Houston. How many will it drop down to, do you expect?
I mean, I know that the requirements are increasing, so that it will naturally drop down. I think probably by half. That's what the struggle for them right now will be, to raise money, get their individual donor count up, and to make some news so that they can poll at 2%. But as Morgan said earlier, the debate format with those many people on the stage is just, it's not helpful to anyone. It's just a back and forth. It's entertainment more than it is substance. So I do think that the substance will be a little bit better in the September debate, because there'll be fewer people trying to knock each other down.
The boring people will be gone. And Senator Gillibrand will have to come back to New York and be introduced to her constituents because they don't know her. I mean, she needs to welcome party. Hi, you know who I am? You're paying me all this money and giving me staff. I haven't done any work for you, but that's okay. I'm back,
Okay, so who do you see staying in rather than who's dropping out? Who's staying in?
Last night, from this group, okay? Certainly Harris, certainly Booker, certainly Biden, certainly, let's see, Buttigieg. Who's raising money because he represents this is a very important moment in American politics. An openly gay man out there doing this, very important for our democracy that we have everybody reflected. Who's left?
Warren
and
Sanders. Beto O'Rourke has qualified, even though his candidacy is really failing. And then I think you might have some wild cards, people who did do well in the debates, maybe someone like Tulsi Gabbard or Andrew Yang, who have their own kind of base that they may be able to develop into getting into the next debate.
Hickenlooper and the rest, a lot of them gone.
Bringing it down to a more manageable 10 or less, do you think?
It will be in the ballpark of somewhere between 8 and 10.
And you still say the Democrats are doing a great job to get Donald Trump reelected?
Yeah, I mean, the lesson from the Trump election in 2016 is not that this is a super liberal country. That's just not the lesson. In AOC's district, she won by being a socialist, but that's not where the rest of the country is. That's not where presidential electoral college politics gets you the nomination. But up on that stage, they seem to think that's how to do it, and it's just simply not. And by the way, those ideas are fine, and if they win, that's, the country wants to give them the chance to execute those ideas. But like I said, there's no way to do that. Not one of them has laid out any responsible plan on how to do all this. It's just it's a pandering, it's a panderfest, it's a race to the left. Who can give free government services out to most people? They think that's how they're going to get elected.
They haven't shown a unified vision of exactly who they are.
There is no uniform. Both parties are in trouble. The difference is the Republicans have been able to constrict themselves to become much more regional and fight the Civil War again. The issue here for the Democrats is they haven't had that experience. But the basic issues they raise are real. Income inequality is a real issue in this country, and a very significant one. It'll rip the democracy apart. They're talking about ways, even though we may not agree with them, or some might not, to solve that problem, and they are the only ones who have a solution for it in any way, shape, or form.
I disagree. I mean, yes, it's I don't disagree that it's a problem. I don't disagree that it needs to be talked about. They are also talking about it, but not one of them is offering solution. They're up there scaring the heck out of people and calling each other names. I mean, that's what we're seeing. They don't have one responsible way to do the things that they're talking about doing.
Last word.
That always happens in debate where there's going to be polarization, but nobody has done more to help the Democrats be elected than Donald Trump.
Morgan Backlund, Chapin Fay, and Hank Sheinkopf. Thank you. Your insight is always appreciated, and we'll have you back here again soon. Next debate, September 12th in Houston. And that'll do it for our program this week. If you have any comments or wish to see the broadcast again, log on to our website, pix11.com/newscloseup. I'm Marvin Scott. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everyone.